Scientific Advertising by Claude C. Hopkins. Introduction. Imagine it's the early 1900s. You're walking down a street, and you see advertisements for 5 different brands of beer. All of them shout the same, single word: pure. One poster shouts it in big, red letters. Another has a fancy picture. A third just has the word pure and a price. They all blend together, a meaningless chorus. You've seen it all before, and you don't believe any of them. Then, one day, a new advertisement appears. It doesn't just shout pure. It shows you. It's a long, detailed story. It tells you about the brewery. It describes how they drilled wells 4,000 feet deep into the earth, through rock and sand, to get the purest water. It tells you about the parent yeast cell, the one they cultivated from 1,018 different experiments to get the perfect flavor, and how every batch of beer today is grown from that very same mother cell. It describes the massive, plate glass rooms where the beer is cooled in filtered air. It tells you how every single bottle is cleaned not once, not twice, but 4 times with steam, to ensure it's absolutely sterile before it's filled. After reading this, you see the rival brewer and you ask him, "Why don't you talk about all the amazing things you do to make your beer pure?" And the rival brewer scoffs, "What? Everyone does that. That's just how you make beer. There's nothing special about it." And right there is the $1 million, no, the $1 billion insight. The man who wrote that famous ad, a legend named Claude C. Hopkins, replied, "Yes, my friend. But the people don't know it." That one campaign, by simply telling the truth in a specific and compelling way, took a little-known brewery and made it one of the most famous brands in the world. Welcome, my friend, to Scientific Advertising. This book, first published in 1923, is the foundation. It's the little rule book that giants of industry and marketing have quietly studied for 100 years. David Ogilvy, one of the most famous ad men of all time, once said, "Nobody should be allowed to have anything to do with advertising until he has read this book 7 times. Why? Because Claude C. Hopkins was the man who turned advertising from a blind gamble into a measurable science. He was a man who believed that spending money on an advertisement without knowing, for a fact, that it worked, was not just wasteful, it was foolish. This book is old. The examples are about shaving cream and automobiles from a century ago. But do not let that fool you. This book is, perhaps, more relevant today than it was the day it was written. Why? Because the technology has changed? We have TikTok and YouTube instead of newspapers and magazines? But the human being has not. The core psychology, the secret triggers that make us curious, the things that make us trust, and the reasons we decide to act, those are identical. Hopkins was a master of human psychology, and today, we're going to unpack his timeless principles. My promise to you is this: by the end of our time together, you won't just understand what makes a good advertisement. You'll understand the fundamental laws of persuasion, the science of communication, and how to present your ideas, in an email, in a presentation, or just in a conversation, in a way that is clear, compelling, and almost impossible to ignore. Let's begin. Book summary. If you had to boil this entire book down to one single concept, it would be this: advertising is salesmanship. That's it. It's not art. It's not creative expression. It's not about winning awards or making your friends laugh or showing your boss how clever you are. The only purpose of an advertisement, in Hopkins' view, is to make a sale. If a salesman came to your door, dressed in a clown suit, juggling, and shouting clever but meaningless slogans, would you buy from him? No? You'd be entertained, perhaps, but you wouldn't trust him with your money. Yet, this is what advertisers do all the time. They forget they are salesmen. They try to be performers. They seek applause instead of sales. Hopkins demands that we treat every ad like a salesman. We must measure it by the sales it makes, and only the sales it makes. An ad is just a salesman multiplied, one that can speak to thousands, or even millions, of people at once. And because the cost of that salesman is so high, sometimes $10 for a single word, it must be a super salesman. So, if advertising is salesmanship, how do you become a super salesman? Well, you don't guess. You test. This is the scientific part of scientific advertising. Before Hopkins, advertising was a total gamble. You'd write an ad you thought was good, spend $100,000, and pray. Hopkins said this was madness. He was one of the first to perfect a method of tracking every single dollar. He did this by using keyed advertising. He would run an ad in one newspaper with a coupon that said Department A in the corner. He'd run a different ad in another newspaper with a coupon that said Department B. When the coupons were mailed in, he could count them. He knew exactly which ad pulled how many replies. He didn't just track replies, he tracked the cost per reply. His entire education came from what he called the University of Mail Order. Mail order was the ultimate teacher because there was no confusion. You ran an ad, and people either mailed you their money, or they didn't. The numbers were clear as day. You knew to the fraction of a penny what each ad was costing you and what it was bringing in. This is where he learned that assumptions are worthless. He tells a story of a man selling a $5 article. His ad was bringing in replies for 85 cents each, which was profitable. A new ad man came in and said, "I can do better," and he submitted an ad he thought was brilliant. They tested it. The replies cost $14.20 each. Then, a third man submitted an ad. It was simple, plain, and direct. They tested it. For 2 years, that ad brought in replies for an average of 41 cents each. Think about that. One ad was 34 times more expensive than another, and the only way to know the difference was to test. The ad man who guessed would have bankrupted the company. The ad man who tested made it a fortune. This is the core of the entire book. Stop guessing. Start testing. So, what did all this testing teach him? What are the laws of scientific salesmanship? Well, the first lesson from the mail order school was that people will read what interests them. We have this idea today that people don't read. They have short attention spans. You have to be brief. Hopkins would say that's one of the most expensive follies in business. When you're looking to spend your hard-earned money on something, you want information. If you're interested in a new car, you'll read a 30-page brochure. If you're struggling with a health problem, you'll read a 5,000-word article on a solution. The mail-order advertisers proved this. Their ads were often tiny type, packed from top to bottom with information. They had no room for pretty borders or wasted white space. And they discovered a law that is as true today as it was then. The more you tell, the more you sell. Hopkins tells a story about the Marmon car. A man was considering a Rolls-Royce or a Pierce Arrow. But their ads were short, dignified, and told him nothing. They just showed a name and a fancy picture. The Marmon ad, by contrast, was a complete story. It was columns long. It told him everything about the engineering, the quality, the experience. He read every word, and he bought the Marmon. The lesson is, don't be afraid to tell your full story. The wrong people will ignore it, but the right people, your potential customers, will thank you for it. Of course, this leads to the next big question. How do you get the right person to start reading your long, detailed story in the first place? The answer is the headline. Hopkins says the purpose of a headline is not to attract the most people. It is to pick out people you can interest. Think of it this way. You're in a crowded stadium. You don't just shout, "Hey!" You shout, "Hey there, Bill Jones." Your headline is your Bill Jones. It's a filter. If you're selling a course on business, your headline isn't a fascinating story. It's for the man who wants to be a leader. If you're selling a cream for wrinkles, you don't write a clever headline about Egyptian psychology. You write, "Now you can look 10 years younger." The wrong people will skip it, but the right people, the ones you actually want, will find it impossible not to read on. A change in headline, Hopkins found, could multiply an ad's returns by 5 or 10 times. He would often spend hours, or even days, testing and perfecting a single headline. The headline gets their attention. Your complete story gives them the argument. But what is that argument? This is where Hopkins moves from science to psychology. And his most important lesson is in Chapter 3, Offer Service. Here is the fundamental truth of all salesmanship. People are selfish. They do not care about you. They do not care about your company, your interests, or your profits. They care about themselves. And yet, look at most advertising. It's all about the seller. Buy my brand. We're the best. Give me your money. This, Hopkins says, is a costly mistake. It's an unpopular appeal. The best ads, the ones that truly work, ask no one to buy. Instead, they are based entirely on service. They offer wanted information. They offer advantages. They offer a free sample, a trial, or a way for the customer to prove the claims without any risk. People can be coaxed, he writes, but not driven. He gives beautiful examples. A brush maker sent his 2,000 salesmen to homes, and they were enormously successful. Why? They didn't go to the door and say, "Would you like to buy a brush?" They went to the door and said, "I was sent here to give you a brush. I have a few samples, and I just want you to take your choice." The housewife, delighted, would look over the samples to pick her free one. And in the process, she'd see 3 or 4 others she wanted. And feeling obligated to reciprocate the gift, she would almost always place an order. Another company sold coffee from wagons. The salesman would stop at a house, hand the woman a half-pound of coffee, and say, "Please accept this package and try it. I'll come back in a few days to ask how you liked it." He wasn't selling. He was serving. This principle is timeless. It's the 7-day free trial on an app. It's the use it for a week, then decide offer on a mattress. It's the smoke 10 of these cigars, and then decide if you want to pay for them. This strategy does 2 things. First, it shows unbreakable confidence in your own product. You're saying, "I don't need to pressure you. The product will do the selling." Second, it taps into a deep psychological trigger. A man was offered 2 horses. The first seller said, "Try the horse for a week. If you don't like it, come back and get your money." The second seller said, "Try the horse for a week. Then, come back and pay me." Which horse do you think he bought? The second one, of course. It was the ultimate demonstration of confidence. This leads to the next great law. Be specific. Hopkins had no patience for lazy, general claims. He called them platitudes. Saying best in the world, highest quality, or lowest prices is a waste of ink. They are just things a salesman is expected to say. They have no weight. They sound like lies. But a specific claim, he found, has enormous power. A man who makes a specific claim is either telling the truth or he's telling a very clear, provable lie. And since people don't expect advertisers to be that bold with a lie, they accept specific claims as facts. This is one of the most powerful chapters in the book. If you say, "Our prices have been reduced," people yawn. If you say, "Our prices have been reduced 25%, people listen. One advertiser sold clothes with the slogan, "Lowest prices in America." Every one of his rivals copied him. It became meaningless. On Hopkins's advice, he changed his claim to, "Our net profit is 3%. That one, specific, believable claim caused a sensational increase in his business. Hopkins was hired to advertise a new shaving cream in a market that was totally dominated by old, established brands. It was an impossible task. He couldn't just say, "Our soap is better." No one would believe him. So he dug in. He learned that the makers had tested 130 different formulas to get this one right. He didn't say, "Acts fast." He said, "Softens the beard in 1 minute." He didn't say, "Lathers well." He said, "Maintains its creamy fullness for 10 minutes on the face." And he didn't say, "It's the best." He said, "The final result of testing and comparing 130 formulas." He wrote, "Perhaps never in advertising has there been a quicker and greater success in an equally difficult field. Specificity sells. Specificity is truth." And this brings us back to that beer story from the beginning. His rivals were all shouting the generality, "Pure." Hopkins used specifics. He told them why it was pure. The 4,000-foot wells, the steam-cleaned bottles, the filtered air. He took the commonplace facts of the business and made them sound extraordinary, simply by being the first one to tell the story. This is what a true salesman in print does. He doesn't shout. He explains. He doesn't boast. He proves. Hopkins was also a master of human nature. He knew what made people tick. He understood curiosity. He was hired to sell puffed wheat and puffed rice. The products were failing. They were just breakfast cereals. So he dug in and learned about the manufacturing process. He started writing headlines like, "Grains puffed to 8 times normal size." And even better, "Food shot from guns." He explained that 125 million steam explosions were caused in every single kernel. Was it true? Yes. It was just how they were made. But it tapped into a deep, human curiosity that made people have to try it. Those products, once failures, became massive successes, all because of a psychological angle. He knew that cheapness is not a strong appeal. Americans, he said, are extravagant. They want bargains, but they do not want cheapness. They want to feel they can afford the best. If you treat them like they're poor, they will resent you. He also knew the psychology of the word free. This one is brilliant. 2 companies were selling a similar food. Both offered a full-size package to get people to try it. The first advertiser gave his package away for free. You just had to ask for it. That campaign failed. He even lost the customers he already had. Why? He had cheapened his product. He had told the world it was worth nothing. The second advertiser did something different. He published a coupon in the newspaper. That coupon was good at any store for a full-size package, and the maker would pay the store the full retail price. That campaign was a huge success. Think of the difference. The first man said, "Here, take this, it's free." The second man said, "This product is so good, I'm going to buy it for you." One cheapened the product, the other added immense value and respect to it. This same logic applied to samples. Hopkins was a huge believer in samples. The product itself, he said, should be its own best salesman. But he was dead set against promiscuous sampling. Never, ever just hand out samples on a doorstep or in a store. Why? Because they are like waifs on the doorsteps. They are given no respect. They are cheapened. Instead, you must make the person ask for the sample. The person must first read your ad, your full, specific story. They must become interested. They must be brought to the point of taking action, filling out a coupon, calling a number, or visiting a store, to request the sample. When the sample arrives, it is not a piece of junk mail. It is a welcome guest. The person is in a positive state of mind. They expect to find the qualities you claimed, and so, they almost always do. This process, getting them to raise their hand and ask, is what separates the scientist from the gambler. Finally, Hopkins teaches us about the character of our salesmanship. First, he says, don't be a clown. You can get attention by being eccentric or strange, but you will ruin your selling prospects. People do not patronize a clown. They don't trust their money with fools. In all your advertising, be normal. Be sincere. Be believable. Create a consistent, trustworthy personality for your brand and stick to it. Second, don't be negative. This is one of the most wonderful chapters in the book. Never, ever attack a rival. It is not permitted in the best publications, and it's never good policy. It looks unfair, not sporty. The selfish purpose is too obvious. Always appear to be a good-natured person. Even more importantly, don't focus on the problem. Focus on the solution. Show the bright, happy, attractive side of things. If you're selling a cure for wrinkles, don't show wrinkles. Your customers already know about wrinkles. Show the beautiful face as it will appear. If you're advertising a dentifrice, don't show ugly, bad teeth. Show pretty teeth. If you're advertising a business course, don't show a picture of a failure. Show a picture of a successful person, a leader. He gives this powerful piece of advice. Picture what others wish to be, not what they may be now. We are attracted to sunshine, to beauty, to health, and to success. So, he says, point the way to them, not the way out of the opposite. In the end, all of these laws, from offering service to being specific to staying positive, come back to the first and most important rule: test everything. You cannot guess what headline will work best. You cannot guess what appeal will be most powerful. You cannot guess what people want. You must let the customer decide. Before you launch a massive, million-dollar campaign, launch a tiny $5,000 campaign in a few small towns. Let the numbers tell you the truth. Let the cost per reply be your guide. This, Hopkins says, is what removes the gamble. It's what turns wild speculation into a safe and conservative business. It's what separates the scientist from the gambler, the professional from the amateur. It is the simple, powerful, and timeless secret of scientific advertising. Commentary. When you first pick up this book, it's easy to be a little underwhelmed. It was written 100 years ago. It's short, the language is simple. There's not a single mention of the internet, of social media, of viral marketing, or of any tool we think of as modern. And yet, as you read it, you realize this book is, in many ways, the only thing that matters. Claude Hopkins gave us a timeless blueprint for one of the most difficult things in the world: communicating an idea effectively. And the reason it's timeless is that the technology of advertising changes every year, but the psychology of the human being hasn't changed at all. We are still selfish. We still tune out the noise. We still only pay attention to the things that serve us. We are still driven by curiosity. We are still skeptical of vague, boastful claims. We are still deeply trusting of specific, provable facts. We are still attracted to positivity and success, and we still turn away from negativity and fear. The biggest idea I hope you take away from this is not really about advertising at all. It's about respect. The entire scientific method that Hopkins perfected is built on a profound respect for the customer. It's about respecting them enough to not guess what they want, but to listen to them, to use tests and data as a way of letting them tell you what they need. It's about respecting their intelligence. You don't try to trick them with clever slogans or amuse them with clowns. You give them the full, complete, specific story and trust them to make a good decision. And most of all, it's about respecting their money. You don't ask them to gamble on you. You remove the risk. You offer a sample, you offer a trial, you offer to buy the first package for them. You put the burden of proof on yourself and your product, which is exactly where it belongs. So, how can you, as a young, ambitious person, use these ideas today? Here are a few simple ways to start. First, for 1 week, try to become a specific communicator. Catch yourself every time you use a lazy generality. Instead of telling your parents, "School was fine," tell them, "I learned one specific thing in history today about the Punic Wars." Instead of telling a friend, "That's a cool idea," tell them, "I like that idea because it solves this specific problem for this specific person." Just watch how people respond to you differently. Watch how much more weight your words carry. Second, find the service angle. The next time you need to persuade someone, to get a job, to propose a project, to get help with something, stop talking about what you want. Reframe your entire request around what they get. What service are you offering them? How does your idea benefit them? You will find that this simple shift in perspective changes the entire dynamic. And third, run a small test. Before you go all in on a big new project, starting a YouTube channel, launching a side hustle, committing to a new field of study, find a way to test it small. Make one video and see if anyone watches. Ask 10 people if they would actually buy your product before you spend 6 months building it. Let the real world, not your own hopes, be your guide. That was Scientific Advertising by Claude C. Hopkins. We've walked through the main halls of his University of Salesmanship today. But I'll be honest, a summary is like looking at the blueprints of a great building. The real magic happens when you walk through the rooms yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when a simple sentence or a short story from Hopkins hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your map, to help you decide if this journey is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today, this idea of salesmanship, of psychology, of testing, has sparked a light in you, then please, grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you communicate, how you see the world of business, and how you understand people. The link to the book is in the description. And if you found this journey valuable, if you feel just a little bit wiser, please do me a small favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss our next exploration into another one of the powerful books that have built empires and shaped minds. Let's keep growing together.